Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 813B, and today's date is November 9th, 2015, and the title of this episode is Launch of a U.S. Trident Missile is Meant to Provoke China Further. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, DHS was created as an extension of the executive branch to then go out and control basically the police forces around the country. It's their own personal military because they cannot have the armed forces on U.S. soil, so they had to create some type of system where they have control. And we see DHS right now giving military equipment to all the local police units around the country. We understand that the president now is testing 6 different cities to federalize the police. They all report back to DHS. DHS has already started, if you see something, say something. Basically, everyone's spying on each other. And now they're taking it to the next level. And you have to remember, they do this at a young age, Common Core, because they need to indoctrinate children, the youth of America, and brainwash them as they get older. So they need to start at a very young age. So they have Common Core. They have many other type of programs that they're using, like the Gun Sentry program. And now they have this new program called Project Safe Campus. And basically what DHS is doing, it's almost like if you see something, say something. They want kids in the school to spy on other kids. And they will give them cash if they give the information over to DHS. Now, does it mean that someone is doing something or something is actually happening? No, they just see something. They're going to report it, and DHS is going to pay them in cash. And we saw this back in many other countries, one being Germany, where they did this with the youth of America, where they kept an eye on everyone. And it seems like they're doing this to the entirety of society right now, where they're having adults, like in New York City, where if you see someone having a weapon, report them, and they'll be investigated. And if they have that weapon illegally, you'll get $500. And now it's coming down to the level of our children. And we can see why this is happening, because they need the eyes and ears of the people. And the only way to get people to do something is to give them a reward. And that is normally cash. And this is what we're seeing right now. So as we move into this collapse of the economy, and we become more of a fascistic country, we are now seeing the state, the corporations, all merge into one, and people spying on people. And what we're seeing right now is just the beginning. This will accelerate as we move further and further into 2016 and the economy gets worse and they need to provoke a war. They realize the system's breaking down, society's breaking down, and they will try to control as much as they possibly can, as long as they possibly can. Remember, they never want to give up power. Once they're in power, our government employees, they will not easily give it up whatsoever. They will keep it and do whatever they have to keep the rest of the people from taking it from them. And they will continue to spy on you. They will look at your email. They will listen to your phone calls. And this will be expanded. We're already seeing it expanded. They're telling us that the NSA, oh no, we're looking in on this, we're going to stop the spying, but all they did was switch it from government agencies over to the corporations. That's all they're doing, and this is why everyone needs to protect themselves. Continually use devices, software, encryption to protect yourself. We cannot let them feel like it's so easy to spy on us. I mean, they are violating our rights, but the only way to back it up is to use encryption, To make sure your searches are not known by them, you can use Start Page. You can go to startpage.com and you can use that search engine. A lot of times you can use the proxies there to hide and mask your location. You can use encryption to hide your email information. If you don't want to be tracked with your phone, your credit card, your license that will have an RFID chip in sooner or later, you can go to blockitpocket.com. You can get a little sleeve. It's interwoven with metal, silver, copper, blocks the signal, protects your information, stops them from tracking you. There are many different ways we can do this, and we have to continually reinforce our rights to free speech, our right to bear arms, our right not to be searched, not to be spied on, to remind the government that these are our rights, and we need to continually do this. Now, out in Spain, we see Catalonia's parliament. They approved a resolution on Monday to take steps to establish an independent republic, and they're saying that they're going to begin ignoring Spanish institutions and setting up a potential standoff with government in Madrid. They came up with a 9-point resolution which calls on Catalonia's parliament to start within 30 days to prepare laws to create independent social security and tax authorities. This is going to rip Europe apart. This is going to rip Spain apart. We might even see civil war there. And if we look, Europe is coming apart at its seams with the refugee crisis, with countries putting up border walls, with parts of different countries saying we want to secede from the other part. Europe is just completely falling apart right now. Venezuela is claiming that the U.S. Coast Guard plane basically violated their airspace. And they're saying that it flew very close to Venezuela. And they're saying that this is a complete violation. But of course, we didn't hear anything about this in the United States, because whenever the United States does this, they don't report it. When Russia does it or China does it, even though they're in international space, they make it a really big deal. Out in Ukraine, we see Ukraine is going to halt electricity imports from Russia on November 11th. They will no longer get their electricity there. We'll have to see how that works out. We see that the OSCE in Ukraine is saying, yes, we have confirmation that Kiev has been using Grad multiple launch rocket systems against the Donetsk area. And they're saying, yes, it was launched from the northwest section of Ukraine. So here we have Kiev violating the Minsk II ceasefire agreement once again. And we know the Minsk II ceasefire expires at the end of this year. Kiev has not mentioned anything about renewing it whatsoever. Now, Russia and Iran, they have signed the S-300 missile delivery deal. And everything is signed. Talks with Iranian side on forming the image of the S-300 air defense system are continuing and will be completed not earlier than next year. And it looks like Iran will be getting its missiles next year. Now, Russia is looking at the situation in Yemen and in Libya. And the Russian president said his priority was to protect citizens living abroad, regardless of where they are. So, Putin's next target could be Libya and Yemen. And we know the United States government central bankers are not going to let this happen. Russia right now has delivered 1,000 chemical protection suits to Iraq to ensure protection against mustard gas from the Islamic State or the proxy army of the United States government and the coalition forces, because we know they are providing them with these agents. They're not getting it from Syria. We see the OPCW has already confirmed that, yeah, it's not coming from Syria. The Islamic State has these weapons. Where did they get them from? We know it was the United States. So all those times the United States was out there and they were saying that Assad was using chemical weapons. It's Assad using chlorine gas. It was Assad using... Guess what? It was the Islamic State. It was the proxy army for the United States government central bankers. We see Russia is continually pushing back the Islamic State. Since the last 3 days, they've made 137 sorties, hitting 448 infrastructure facilities belonging to the Islamic State, and they're continually pushing the Islamic State back. In the last 24 hours, the Syrian army seized back 3 towns in the Aleppo province. They've won back the town of Zawari in southern countryside of Aleppo, and they are continually pushing the terrorist group back. And we know that the United States, along with Qatar and Turkey, they've been airlifting the Islamic State out of Syria and moving them to Yemen. And now we hear they are moving them to Libya. So this tells us that the Islamic State, the proxy army in Syria, they are in trouble. This is why the United States sent in the special op team to help them get out of Syria, to destroy evidence that ties anything back to the United States, and to have these special op teams in certain areas so Russia cannot bomb these areas. So we see all of this going on all at once. We see out in Iraq, the Iraqi government had announced that it had seized 2 planes of the U.S.-led anti-ISIL coalition member states that were carrying weapons to the Kurdistan region without prior coordination or information of Baghdad. The inspection committee in Baghdad International Airport has found a huge number of rifles equipped with silencers, as well as light and mid-sized weapons. They were 2 Swedish and Canadian airplanes, and they were going to fly to Iraq's Kurdistan region. And we also understand that the U.S. and some other coalition members have been supplying arms to different actors in Iraq. And we know the United States just sits by and they resupply the Islamic State and other terrorist groups, and they give the Iraqis wrong coordinates to attack because they don't want their proxy forces being hit. And they're using Iraq as a staging area to bring these troops into Syria. And it's just all falling apart right now. Now, Ashton Carter was addressing the Reagan National Defense Forum, and he was explaining that we need much more than airstrikes to defeat the Islamic State. We need boots on the ground. And it's possible that we are going to bring in more troops into Syria. Now, of course, the president of the United States has told us 16 times now, there will be no boots on the ground. And what we're seeing is the complete opposite. What we've been seeing is mission creep. What we've been seeing is a push for the authorization for war. And right now there are growing calls for the authorization of war vote. And they're saying that the problems in Syria are getting worse, and they're using the propaganda that Russia cannot destroy the Islamic State. They're actually losing ground, which is all propaganda. And they're trying to make their case in Congress right now, and they're trying to push the authorization of war through. And we know this authorization for war will allow the United States to go into Libya, Yemen, Lebanon, or any other country that has the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, or any terrorist organization. And they will use this to go into Syria. And this is what they're pushing right now. Now, will they get traction to push this through Congress? Most likely not. Congress is not going to be moved by what Russia is doing in Syria. The only way to get Congress to do something and the American people to do something is to have an event. We already have legislation standing there, and we know the U.S. government, when they're backed into a corner, they use events to push the legislation through. And we will see something like this, and it's called a false flag. Well, they will do something here in the United States, blame it on the Islamic State, even though we know it's the proxy army of the United States. But most of the people still believe that the Islamic State is a terrorist organization coming after the American people, which is actually the opposite. The United States controls the terrorist organization, which is going after Assad. And we can see they're going to make a major, major push to get this through. And when it fails, they will resort to an event. Now, out in the UK, Russia will be named as a top-tier potential threat when Prime Minister David Cameron announces the UK new national security strategy later in November. Right now, the Defense Secretary Ashton Carter is suggesting Putin might use nukes on America. But don't worry. U.S. will defend their international order. So basically, they're using the narrative, and it revolves around two things: a resurgent Russia and the rise of China. And of course, we have to know who our enemy is going to be. So they're pushing the idea that Russia and China, North Korea, Iran, Syria, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, maybe India, will all be our enemy on this upcoming war. So it looks like right now that they're going to be bringing in more troops into Eastern Europe. And a U.S. military strategist believes the U.S. and NATO would be annihilated if there is any type of Balkan battle with Russia. So we have more troops going into Eastern Europe. We have the United States provoking China in the South Pacific. We have the push for authorization for war. We have boots going on into Syria. We have the F-15s in Turkey that only have air-to-air missiles. This is all starting to fit into a scenario where we're going to be entering World War III. And then we have the down Russian plane. Now, right now, the United States, UK are saying they have special intel that says it's a bomb. Russia is not finished with their investigation. They heard some type of noise. They don't know what it is yet. They haven't found any bomb residue on the passengers, but they're still investigating. And then we find out that the US and the UK received their intel from Israel. Before all of this, they had no intel. So where did Israel get its intel that this was a bomb? Because we know Rita Katz puts up the videos for the Islamic State. She knows where to find them, if you know what I mean. They create them. And all of a sudden, Israel has the intel for this bombing. And we know this is all part of the same system. And of course, this was, if it was a bomb, this was a message to Russia. We can get you. And again, there's other agendas that they're trying to scare the people of Russia with terrorism. It's not going to work. Now, the United States is also preparing for a single weather event that could cost $2 trillion in damage. On October 29th, the White House National Science and Technology Council released its strategic plan to prepare for an extreme weather event in space that could destroy satellites, spacecraft, and vital telecommunication systems. So they're looking to start this program, and they're prepping for some type of space EMP burst. That's basically what they're saying. And then we had a Trident missile launch from a submarine. Now, was the U.S. government trying to send a message to someone on Saturday night? Because if they fired this during the day, most of the people probably wouldn't have seen it because it was too bright out. You wouldn't see the smoke plume or the fire from the back of the rocket engine. So many people wouldn't have seen it. If they fired at midnight or, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, most of the people wouldn't have seen it then. So they planned it perfectly to be fired at night at prime time. So the U.S. military, they established a no-fly zone west of Los Angeles for a week. And many people said, that's very interesting. Why are they doing this? Well, now we know why. But nobody expected the U.S. to fire a Trident 2 missile from the USS Kentucky, which was very close to the United States. So they made sure everyone saw it. People in Arizona and Nevada actually saw it. And the Navy right now is assuring that this is perfectly normal. This is what we do. But no one's really buying this explanation. Because why did they have to do this so close to the coast? They have the entire Pacific Ocean to do this. They didn't need to do this right here. And it's very interesting because they're firing this off at the end of their drill called Trident Juncture. And this was a huge drill that NATO and the U.S. were having. It's one of the biggest drills in the last 13 years. So the corporate media, the U.S. government, was telling us that this missile was unarmed. But when it was blasted off, how did the corporate media know this? They didn't. They had no idea. Nobody had any idea. It could have been a real launch for all we thought. And this was done on purpose. This was to provoke China, because when you look at it, it flew from the coast of California to the Marshall Islands. They wanted China to pick this up. They wanted the people of the United States to see this. Now, why are they doing this? Well, specialists in naval affairs just released on September 21st, 2015, the report entitled China Naval Modernization, Implications for U.S. Navy Capabilities. China is building a modern and regionally powerful navy with a limited but growing capability for conducting operations beyond China's near seas region. Observers of Chinese and U.S. military forces view China's improving naval capabilities as posing a potential challenge in the Western Pacific to the U.S. Navy's ability to achieve and maintain control of blue water ocean areas in wartime. And we have to remember, China sailed their ships near Alaska. We have to understand the United States is in the South Pacific provoking China. This was another stage of provoking China. The most important section of the report is China's ship-killing ballistic missiles. China is fielding an ASBM referred to as the DF-21D that is a theater-range ballistic missile equipped with a maneuverable re-entry vehicle designed to hit moving ships at sea. Basically, they're going to destroy aircraft carriers, they'll be able to destroy destroyers, and other missiles. And right now, they're sending a message to China, provoking them, making sure the U.S. population saw this. I mean, we are heading down the path to World War III right now. All the pieces of the puzzle are coming together. All the United States, all they have to do is provoke a country and wait for a response. Now, if they cannot get the response they want, and they're running out of time as the economy collapses, their next move is a false flag event to make it look like China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Syria, you name it, to make it look like they did something. They launched a missile. They sank a sub. They sank a destroyer. They sank an aircraft carrier. And they are getting ready, and it's just a matter of time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.